I was told to introduce myself. I'm 28 years old, I'm from Germany, in third year, already heard that. Prior to studying medicine, I worked as a critical care paramedic in Germany in various locations, and we see a rising numbers of casualties from e-scooters, and I'm sure everybody of us has seen one at Boulevard going 50 miles an hour, passing buses, and so this is why I choose this topic. NCDs, right in front, is just for non-commutable diseases, so they can't go from human to human. It's hard to prioritize a trauma. So why are we here today? Well, pretty simple, that's why. Looks good, no, doesn't it? Looks funny, does hurt actually. A layout for it. It's going to be a short introduction that we just met. The types of injuries sustained. One graph from the USA, because there is a funny part and a desperate part of it. How do we prevent it? This is the boring part. There is no glory in prevention, once said by many famous epidemiologists, but it is the cheapest and best effort we can do to relieve strain on our healthcare systems. We're going to go over case. This case is not from an e-scooter. There are not that many good documented e-scooter injuries, but it is from the Isle of Man TT motor race. So we can see a man with all protective gear and the trauma he sustained. I'm going to talk about it, and a quick conclusion as always. So the US, well, from Statista, it shows the increase in scooter injuries in general, and we can see this is already pre-pandemic, so it went down a bit, but it has not been statistically analyzed yet. And we can even see a sharp increase after the pandemic was declared over and went into the endemic state, right? And we can also see, if you look below, 32% is head injury. Head injuries are bad because a lot of things in us can grow back together or generally grow back. The brain does not really. There are very limited resources to resupply a brain or operate on it. If it's broken once, it's broken for life. So it's not the best idea. And then we follow with lower extremity, upper extremity, torso. So we went there. We said, okay, this is from Berlin, actually, a German study, and they went further into it. So like, okay, what is hurting? So this is why you see a bit different percentages in the injuries, because the other one was US. Now we're going to Germany. The charity analyzed it, and they also find similar numbers, if you see. So especially, let me go over, especially in the head, here we find even more. We have 41%. A lot of tissue injury, so it's just scalpation, something that can be stitched together and that's it. Still doesn't look good, especially if you're younger. Most e-scooter drivers are younger, have not seen an 80-year-old on an e-scooter yet. Followed by the upper limbs, and also here especially we can see fractures. 20% fracture rate in the limbs, so 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know, I like my arms, I've broken them before, but cannot recommend it, right? Torso is not that much. Why? Because the torso is, first of all, protected. We have a rib cage, and also the abdominal organs. Well, if you're not really falling directly onto the handlebar, not much is going to happen because it's not a fall from height. So it's not that important here. And then we go to the lower limbs, and there we see again a rapid increase, 42% had damage to the lower limbs. Well, because you're falling, you're tripping, you might try to stop the impact and therefore have a trauma you're sustaining here. What can we do? Helmets, easy. Helmets save lives. Saved mine once in a sport accident now 12 years ago. I recommend wearing one, right? The upper limbs, wear gloves. As you can see, especially the soft tissue damage, hands are the first thing where you try to lower the impact and you straighten them in front of you, which is why you need to protect them, because hands are pretty important, you might figure, right? Elbows are the next thing, because here we can see the next big impact going in if we try to stop a fall. And the lower limbs, knee protectors. Well, now you look like the American inline skater from the 80s. But if you take one thing away that you should wear, because hands, elbows, and legs mostly can be repaired if they're not torn off entirely. Your head can't be repaired. Wear a helmet for your own safety in order to be here a longer while, right? Going into a quick one, where are the most injuries? We just went to it with the upper extremities and lower extremities here. So we can especially see why I recommend gloves. Distal radius and the olecranon, so the elbow region. These are the main impacts where we see trauma in e-scooters happening, right? So this is why they are important. And in the leg we can see, well, Knee protectors, this is why I said take it, granted, makes nice, but especially the ankle. As I said, we try to stop a fall or we trip over and sprain the ankle or fracture it, right? A cause of death. This is the funny chart. How can you tell it's from the USA? We can see there are more firearm-related injuries than car crashes. Thankfully, it doesn't happen in the EU. But what I want you to see is we can see a sharp increase, especially in the motor vehicle crashes. This is the blue line. It went down, 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 and then this one goes to 2020, so roughly beginning of the pandemic, and still we can see an increase in injuries, right? So, be not a part of the statistics. The Isle of Man TT, what you can see here is a rider who had a low side, so he slipped off his bike, just like you would if you could to a corner and then slide. The e-scooter goes out, you go in, you fall. Difference is this guy is wearing protective equipment which costs 5 figures, $10,000, $15,000. Has a helmet, has a lead brace, has an entire leather gear, everything, right? And he slipped off and is going into that wall. At this point, he's roughly doing 80 kilometers an hour. That's it, right? So if you look at the fast e-scooters, they go roughly the same already. But they are not wearing that protective equipment. So let's have a look at him. I had to order something out. So we can see he had broken his cervical spine, he had a hemorrhage in his head, he had broken femurs, so lower legs, and a broken pelvis. He needed 20 packed red blood cells, they called, so 20 times 0.5 liters of red blood cells, 10 liters just for the surgery, for the damage control in order to be alive. I wish it would be a happy story. This rider died 2 years after in another motorcycle crash. But at least we went through the first one, does he? Right? So if you think about it, he had an entire protective equipment and he managed to destroy his body this way. So imagine going without any protective equipment and doing the same thing. It's not the best outcome. A conclusion, it's simple. Don't do it like that. A dog and a bag of cement is not your go-to if you want to protect your head. Because especially if you take a fall with this season, well, the dog's going to be upset and the cement might break your bones. Thank you very much.